I'm really starting to get tired of hearing of Console War 2013, although I wouldn't really call it a war. Calling it a war seems to give the indication that both sides are competing, when in reality, Microsoft stabbed themselves in the stomach back in E3, and Sony has been curb-stomping Microsoft's head in for nearly 3 months now. That being said, though, the latest news on these two does make things rather interesting. Microsoft announced earlier this week that the Kinect, which looks about as sinister as the head of a Dalek, will no longer need to be plugged in order for the console to run, much to the delight of conspiracy theorists and anonymous, and to the dismay of the NSA and the Illuminati. So if I have checked my big board of Microsoft's screw-ups over the last few months, it seems that just about everything that made the gaming community angrier than a swarm of bees who had their hives set on fire by a blowtorch has now been done away with. But Microsoft now has a large problem, albeit one they caused themselves. The Xbox One is scheduled to be released in America, its home country, in November, and so far as I can tell, there is no benefits to owning an Xbox One over a PS4. Yes, Microsoft, you did fix all the policies and procedures that no sane person wanted, but now you're back to square one. You now have to give me a reason to buy your console over the vastly superior PS4, and exclusive titles aren't going to cut it anymore. Not like you had that many to begin with. Speaking of the PS4, boy, it's been looking as appealing as a 5-star sushi bar covered in cream puffs, hasn't it? Not only is the price point for the PS4 cheaper than the Xbox One, but the PSN network is expanding, you get a free game every month, cloud game streaming is on its way, and there's no PS Plus requirement to use the internet and apps. Good lord, if consoles were hotels, then the PS4 is like a Ritz-Carlton, and the Xbox One is like a Holiday Inn Express, covered in giant holes left by the wrecking balls known as E3. We'll leave the other competitors out of this analogy, because Nintendo would probably be like the Marriott at Times Square, and Steam would probably be the master and commander of the entire freaking world. Something to remember though, in the press conference back in May, Microsoft made a huge deal about how the Xbox One was going to be an all-in-one entertainment hub for TV programming. Well, now Sony has hit Microsoft with the low-kick Hadouken combo and taken one of the biggest content providers out of Microsoft's hands. Sony has struck a deal with Viacom to allow streaming of Viacom content onto Sony's internet TVs and the upcoming PS4. Basically, networks such as Nickelodeon, MTV, Comedy Central, and Spike are now going to be available for Sony products exclusively. This is a big deal because the way Microsoft has been doing things, you need to buy your freaking Xbox Live membership to even use the internet and then fork over even more money for the content you want, such as HBO Go or Zune or whatever. If you want to watch something over the PS4 though, you can use the internet access and it costs you a big fat zero, and the only cost is for whatever subscription you choose. And for Viacom, one of the most notoriously greedy companies of all time, to choose to give its content to Sony and not Microsoft? Frankly, I'm rather astounded by that. I would have thought that Viacom and Microsoft would have fit together like if Freddy Krueger partnered with Shao Kahn. So not only is the PS4 Ritz-Carlton looking amazing already, but now it's getting a multiplex theater built in, streaming content from Viacom that will be exclusive only to Sony. And the thing I like about this deal with Viacom is that if I choose to buy this service, my money will not be going to a cable or satellite company, which in my opinion is ideal because I'm pretty sure that the cable companies are the ones that made Viacom the vengeful, deranged beast that it is now. Something to remember though is that technically the console war hasn't even begun yet. Usually a console war starts after the consoles have been released and people get to see what the console really is. Remember the Red Ring of Death back in 2004? I still feel sorry for the poor saps who bought the 360 at launch. Both companies are still waiting for the race to begin in November, although at this point it's looking like the PS4 is a Formula One race car and the Xbox One is looking like a horse-drawn carriage without a horse.